All right.
All right, ready to go?
Everybody, yep, everybody's coming in. Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday. I almost said Wednesday. Thursday, September 17th, 2020. So glad you're able to join us for another session of American Public Policy Redo. Just a reminder, as always, we'll do some housekeeping. Just a reminder that this is being recorded to put on Pat's YouTube channel. So if you do ask a question or have a comment, that will be recorded. It's being recorded in active speaker mode. So you will not be recorded unless you take yourself off of mute and ask the question. Even though you may be seeing yourself in gallery, it's being recorded in the active speaker mode. And then also we had some discussion about last week, and we're always trying new things every single week to meet the needs of this group. And so we have decided to go ahead, let's hold, or Pat would like to hold thoughts until the end, based on some of your suggestions as well. And so we'll just hold thoughts at this point, unless you have a question relative to what he's presenting. If you do not understand a concept or an idea that he's speaking of, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask for clarification to just make sure that everyone's understanding what he's presenting. But we will have time for questions, discussion, and maybe even breakout rooms at the end of this session, depending on how things go. And so that is all I have. On up to you, Pat.
Great, thanks. It's once again great to sort of see all of you. Again, it would be just really pretty awesome if I could see you all in person, but we'll hope for the best there. I wanted to start out this time with a little discussion about how I would like people to approach what we're doing. Because what's been happening to a certain degree is, and I understand this, folks want to jump to the end. They want to jump to the conclusion and identify the one special, important, powerful factor that's driving everything that's going on. I'm going to be talking, I was talking from the very beginning in terms of models, and models are relationships between concepts that, taken as a whole, help you explain and understand what's going on. They always contain lots of different variables, okay, lots of different concepts. You can have lots of different kinds of relationships between those concepts. So in short, I'm urging folks to hold off right now so that we can build that model, so that we have an adequate foundation for building that model, so that when you do come to the conclusion, you've got a firm basis for elaborating that conclusion. And hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna buttress this a little bit by noting comments I made at like the very beginning, that I want to take advantage of the experience and expertise of those of you who have been involved in policymaking in lots of different capacities. Essentially, what I want to acknowledge there is each one of us has a little glimpse of the elephant, but each one of us just has part of the elephant. And we really need to bring all of those to bear so that we don't think it's something other than an elephant. And hopefully that makes sense. In short, I want everybody to approach this as a learning process and giving each of us a chance to learn from each other in moving forward. So here's what I want to do this evening. I want to lay out the old model of public policymaking in a sense, more comprehensive terms than I did in American public policy before it became Redux. that is, I want to identify all of the theoretical underpinnings that set up that model. You know, if you took the class, you weren't possibly going to be at a place where you would say, well, wait a second, Pierce, why in the hell is this supposed to work the way that you're claiming? But I think it's important, if we move this thing forward, I need to provide that at this point. All of the theoretical underpinnings that form the basis for that subgovernmental politics model, okay? And that's what I want to do first. I want to identify a number of these things where maybe have been implicit in that class, but we will benefit from me making them explicit, okay? So if you took my advice and you printed out the little diagram, or if you have your original diagram, which Michelle is showing off, pull that out, have that in front of you as I hit some of these things. And also my comment that identified the outside actors. Okay, and we're not going to do the, what was it, Schoolhouse Rocks? Was that the how a bill becomes law thing? Anyway, we're not going to do that part. But I want you to have that comment about identifying the outside actors. So the basic thing involved that subgovernment that was a sort of a closed cooperative system that in the old system worked very efficiently and effectively to produce policy. And that could be challenged by those outside actors, okay? Ordinary citizens, the courts, the presidents, the president, and so on, okay? All right, so if you have that in front of you, probably the first thing is to see that it's a really, really insulated system. And then there are lots of systems, right? Each one of those, each subgovernmental system pertained to a narrow area of public policy making, and it made that policy in isolation from all the other subgovernmental systems, and then they engaged in log rolling to get things done. I'll vote for your pork barrel project if you vote for my pork barrel project, okay? But that made it a very, very insulated system. So the first theoretical underpinning involved the mass public. This works in large part because of the nature of the mass public, that the mass public doesn't care that much about politics, isn't interested in politics in that much, and doesn't get engaged in politics that much, particularly politics of the policymaking process, okay? Just as an anecdotal kind of thing, attendance at my reunion talks is always higher when it's about a presidential election rather than policymaking, consistently, okay? So even for really well-educated, mature alumni coming back from St. Mary's, it's elections, okay? Get to policymaking and interest declines, okay? And that's gonna kind of keep the mass public on the outside. When you look at the other outside actors, you should note they are all generalists. They don't specialize, okay? So the theoretical underpinning associated with the fact that they're generalists is that the fact that they're generalists means they don't have expertise in a narrow area. You can't be an expert all over the place, and yet they have to deal with policy all over the place. there's not a special court for agricultural policy and a special court for consumer. They have to deal with all sorts of cases, okay? So they're not going to have the expertise. They're not going to have the specific interest, and they won't have any special incentive to become an expert in any given particular policy matter, okay? All of this stuff then puts them on the periphery of the policymaking process, okay?
Hey, Pat, I wanted to jump in real quick. And then
Sure.
if anybody doesn't have the PDF that you're referring to, Adrian was really kind and posted it into the chat group or the chat of this presentation. So you can find it.
If anybody has been unable to access it, give a yell right now. Everybody good?
And okay. If you go to the chat section or just click on
right,
chat.
but I'm on, right, but like I have my Zoom up and then you're asking me to pull up a file.
No, if you just click on chat and you'll see it.
I'll figure it out.
Okay. Do you want me to share my screen, Pat, with it on there? Would you want me to do that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay.
Just so, I mean, it's going to look really familiar, Ann, but a little refresher ain't bad. Why don't you do that? Everybody can kind of take a look at it for a couple of minutes, and then I can move on.
You want the triangle one right now?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the other one was for a joke.
I know. I was like,
yeah. Well, I know about the triangle.
Well, it's the details on the triangle. There you go.
Yeah, I know all about that triangle.
Yeah. Okay, so since she has it up there, you have my apologies. It's not really a typo. It's my ineptitude at dealing with the graphics. So on the bottom, the arrow that runs from the interest group to the agency actually says, that's right, there's supposed to be a P there. In the original file, there's a P. It just doesn't show up.
Pat, can I please redesign these for you? I'm a professional designer now. I'd be happy to help.
You want to take advantage of the expertise.
This is my area.
You do enjoy practical experience.
There you go. This is from ages and ages and ages ago, because I used it from like the mid 80s on.
Anyway, sorry.
Nothing changed in the theory, so I just had better things to do than futz around with that. Okay, is everybody sort of okay with that now? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we can. Does it work for everybody if you just leave that up there and I talk? Is that okay? Okay.
Yep. Everybody give them a thumbs up.
Okay, good. Okay, so all those folks that aren't listed on the triangle, the special triangle there, they're all generalists. Okay, the mass public, those are generalists as well. And by the way, public interest groups are outside actors too. The interest groups on that triangle, those are private, narrow private interest groups. Everything's narrow on that triangle, okay? So the generalists don't have interest, don't have knowledge, and have no incentive to become expert in any one of these sub-governmental networks at all, okay? And that includes the mass public is just not engaged. And yet, each one of those three sets of actors, the congressional subcommittees, the bureaucratic agencies, the private interest groups, valued expertise and information. Okay, I'm gonna I'm going to jump to, because those of you who've taken the policy course will hopefully remember this. In the old budgetary process, which is linked to this system, the book that we read, the old Wildowski thing on politics of the budgetary process, he had some great anecdotes from appropriations subcommittee hearings, where you had members of the appropriations subcommittee say, if someone comes in and they start making an emotional argument about the rightness of their cause, folks on the subcommittee saw that as a sign of weakness. That means you can't make your case. That means you don't know what the hell you're talking about. If you knew, okay, if you had the evidence and you knew that something was the case, you would bring that to bear in the process. So the mere fact that you have engaged in this wild, emotional kind of appeal, that was seen as a sign of weakness, and it immediately delegitimized you in the eyes of the folks on that appropriations subcommittee. So you get it? In this system, in that system, information and expertise were the real currency being exchanged. Okay? All right. Oh, what the heck? I'm going to ask a question and see if anybody can remember this stuff. And if you wrote it on your diagram, you could probably cheat and do it. So there's something missing. This will be something, Anna, when you redesign this this graphic, you'll want to add this. Okay, there is something missing from that diagram that I don't have on there, and I added it in class, and without that you don't really understand how this works. Does anybody know what's missing? Are you able to cheat, Michelle?
I just have the word symbiosis written everywhere over my paper.
That's.
But I don't see what you're, no.
Do folks remember what symbiosis means?
It's kind of obvious.
Yeah. So it's the symbiosis. It characterizes all of those arrows. Okay. It's the I scratch your back and you scratch mine. Each one of them provides something to the other one in exchange for stuff from them. Okay. So can anybody, what's missing up there? No one?
Media?
No.
Nope.
No, it's not another entity. I'm going to go back and change all your damn grades. That's what I'm going to do.
Is it your issue?
I can't even read it. It's too small.
No. Everybody want to give up? Each one of those sets of actors has something that is the most important thing in the world to them. Okay? And that's what explains why the symbiosis works. So the most important thing in the world for members of those subcommittees is to get reelected. The most important thing in the world for the bureaucratic agency is to maintain and increase their budget. The most important thing in the world for those private interest groups is to gain concentrated benefits for their members and avoid concentrated costs. So we found it in our notes, huh? Good for you.
Well, that just goes unsaid, right?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but Pat,
Sure.
there's a flaw. Those interest groups, those nonprofits, they also want to obtain resources from the federal agencies.
Oh, yeah.
So that was what's missing.
Well, no, it's not missing. Because in the old system, they failed. They weren't nearly as effective as private interest groups because for most of that period of time, they didn't have resources that competed. In developing expertise, they couldn't compete with private interest groups. They weren't going to be on the same footing. Combine all those things we're talking about, right? Narrow perspective, that's why you major in stuff in college, right? You don't major in general. I guess Notre Dame has some kind of loopy general studies. Yeah, but we don't, no, not them. So that's it. Certainly some of these things have changed. The nature and the political character of public interest groups has changed. And that may well be one of the things that we put into the mix. But in this system, there's no way that public interest groups competed. And if you were a public interest group, your interests for the good of the public would pretty consistently then mean that some private interest needed to pay or would perceive that they were paying. And in that battle, they would win and you would, as the public interest group, you would lose, okay? In general, right? I don't know if you folks remember it, I identified some places where public interest groups won, okay? So you get Clean Air Act, right? You get environmental legislation when that movement and public interest groups, environmentalist groups became stronger, had more resources, but it's important, it's like the exception proving the rule, right? It wasn't easy to find instances where public interest groups won. And I know I said, don't cut to the chase, but I'm going to do it in a sense. And even those victories then sometimes fell apart when it came to implementation. Okay. All right. So far, so good. So the importance of what was missing on that diagram is that each one of those actors is able to supply the others with the thing or things that are the most important thing in the world for them. So interest groups and bureaucratic agencies can help subcommittee members get reelected. Okay. Subcommittee members and interest groups can help the agency get a bigger budget. Okay. And both the subcommittee and the bureaucratic agency can deliver concentrated benefits to those private interest groups and help them avoid concentrated costs. Okay. The two different kinds of issues, I decided not to spend any time on the issue typology. We did the thing about symbolic and material. That was the Wilson typology. I decided, just because we're kind of cleaning up stuff last time, that I would skip over the Wilson typology. But the two key kinds of policy using the Wilson typology here are distributive policy, which provides a concentrated benefit, okay, and regulatory, which provides a concentrated cost or inflicts a concentrated cost on a narrow group. This system is tailor-made for distributive policy. It delivers concentrated benefits to specific groups. It's pork barrel politics. Okay? Each one of these narrow interests gets specific benefits from the federal government through this network. And conversely, they avoid being regulated, having concentrated costs inflicted upon them through this network. Okay? do folks want me to go through some of the exchanges that are here, or I think at some point you want to look at this, because this is a beautiful model. It's a beautiful model because it's incredibly parsimonious. It's really, really simple. And on the other hand, really, really powerful. Okay, there's not.
I'd like you to go over some of it, Pat.
Okay, okay. So we'll go from the top, the arrow from the subcommittee to the interest groups. So folks on the subcommittee, they can provide, oh, that's very nice. Satisfy needs of local interest. Well, that's providing those concentrated benefits. So if you're a soybean farmer, folks on the subcommittee can pass policy that enable you to make more money, okay? In addition, if the bureaucratic agency is attempting, sort of misguided, you understand I'm being ironic. If the agency is engaged in this sort of misguided desire to regulate the private interest, the subcommittee can put pressure on the bureaucratic agency to cut that out. Just get rid of it, okay? In return, and a number of you are focusing a lot on some of the stuff here about the interest group power. They provide campaign funding, endorsements, volunteers, particularly unions. I mean, Democrats are so dependent upon unions for volunteers in campaigns. And the partisan analysis, this ain't a bad thing to spend just a minute on. Partisan analysis is this marvelous term that Charles Lindblom came up with. So look at both words. Analysis, which means it's expertise, explanation, information, but it's partisan. So it's information analysis that comes from a particular perspective that enables that perspective to make their case more strongly. That is, it's partisan. They're taking a side and marshaling evidence, keyword, to persuade their audience to go along with them. Okay? Folks on the subcommittee need partisan analysis to defend their decisions. Lots of times interest groups provide that to members of Congress. Okay? Does that make sense? Because that's a really important thing. Folks always want to focus on the campaign funding and don't always recognize how valuable partisan analysis is to members of Congress. Particularly when you have Newt Gingrich cutting staff. And so members of Congress have fewer resources to generate expertise. They become even more dependent upon partisan analysis provided by private interest groups, okay? From the subcommittee down to the agency, I'm tilting my head to go with the arrow. That's pretty sad. Obviously, you can have legislation coming out of the subcommittee, passed by Congress as a whole. If you can, through legislation, broaden the jurisdiction of a given agency, that will get them a bigger budget, okay? If you enable them to engage in more activities through legislation, that will give them a bigger budget, okay? Folks on the subcommittee can testify at budget hearings. Those are, to be clear, we're saying budget hearings, those are hearings before the appropriations subcommittees, okay? And again, if the agency gets out of hand, they can engage in investigation and oversight. And that's been in the news so much, I don't think I need to explain that too much. But if you do that, that will damage the agency's ability to get a bigger budget. If it looks like they've been screwing up, if it looks like they've been doing things they ought not do, that's going to lead to the appropriations subcommittee lowering their appropriations. Okay. The agency up to the subcommittee, again, providing testimony. In a sense, that's a little bit like the kind of partisan analysis that the interest group can provide. The most resource poor entity up there is the subcommittee. Okay. So they're going to want as much information as they possibly can as it helps them get reelected. And I don't know if folks remember the stories about the suggesting actions for which the representative can take credit with John Heiler, who used to be the representative from this district, who was one of the Reagan robots. So he was voting against spending money in any place. You know, Reagan attempted to reduce the size of government. Heiler was going right along with that. So he's voting against all of these bills that would increase spending on programs all over the place. But lo and behold, before each election, various agencies would contact his office and note that a particular project was going to do groundbreaking in what at that time was the 3rd District of Indiana. Would he like to announce that? Get it? He voted against the bill and then he took credit for the project once it came to his district. And the agency played along. Okay? And that would like clockwork, that would happen right before the election because voters' memories are short. Okay? All right, between the interest group and the agency. Interest group provides really persuasive budget testimony because in a sense they are the clients of the agency. The agency is supposed to serve them. So the specific agency within the Department of Agriculture that deals with various commodities, well, they should be serving those folks who produce those commodities. Okay, folks do all kinds of consumer surveys, right? Those interest group representatives therefore form what's seen as the most valuable, reliable testimony that the agency is doing a good job. Okay, if what the agency is doing is hurting soybean farmers, well, then they're doing something wrong. I'm sorry, the agency is doing something wrong, okay? And in turn, once again, they can provide expertise to help the agency defend itself. From the agency back to the interest group, you're talking about what a fair amount of this comes during implementation, okay? So you can think about the bureaucratic agency performing, in a sense, legislative, executive, and judicial functions when they engage in implementation. Because Congress makes vague laws, bureaucratic agencies fill in the details. That's essentially a legislative function. Well, they can fill in the details in lots of different ways. Well, I can fill in the details to provide you with more benefits, interest group, okay? Judicial, if there are, let's say, regulatory guidelines. You can, not everybody who speeds gets caught, right? And cops don't stop everybody who's speeding. You can decide to let some folks speed. Well, they can let the interest group speed. They can let them violate those regulations. I don't think there's a single one of you who doesn't realize that that happens with bureaucratic agencies all the time, okay? And then finally, even if they do decide that you have violated some sort of regulation, they can provide really, really minor penalties, okay? Or, my favorite, they can give you resources so that now you can meet the standards. Essentially giving you, when you are supposed to be punished, they're going to give you benefits that'll help you meet the standard that you were supposed to meet anyway. Okay? Is that helpful, Carla? Okay, cool. All right, let me see what else I need to do to set this up. I don't think I need to do anything else. I think this is the point where we potentially can move into the, what are these called? Zoom? Michelle?
Breakout groups?
Yeah, some sort of breakout groups.
Great. Yeah, that's actually really great because there's a bit of discussion going online in chat about what they have seen is the same and what things are different. So,
yeah.
Great. Let's do this. We're gonna do roughly 4 to 5 people per room. Okay, is that good, or do you want to do more? Up, down.
That's a question for you guys. And once that gets established, then I have like a basic question, excuse me, that I want folks to toss around, and I'm going to try to tightly define where I want you to go. I'm sorry, that's not how far I want you to go in the process, and I will identify what we're going to do after that. Okay.
Great. How long would you like them to chat? What, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
The rest of the time, I can like sign off now and just let the. No. I'm serious. You know, that means you guys can just kind of sort of run with it wherever you want to go, and then I can take a look at the recording. Okay. And then from the recording, I can build toward what we would do at the next step. I think it's valuable for me to get the hell out. And really, I mean, I set things up in a really authoritarian way. But then to like step back and let you guys run with stuff and see where you go.
Great.
Is that cool?
I'm gonna put 15 minutes on and let's see. You know what I'll do, they'll automatically close in 20. It's 5 past, and you'll get 2-minute warning when it goes to close.
Cool.
And you'll come out to the main group and we can continue or close up if need be. So,
okay.
All right, let's do this.
I'm gonna like leave town. As soon as this goes to the breakout group, I'm leaving town, man. I have company at home. And I really I want to make it clear that I really just kind of, the ball's in your court, go where you want to go. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to develop lists of the particular things you believe are very different now than in the old system. Okay? And you may not have time for this next piece, but I want you to think about it. What do you think led to those changes that you've identified that now just work differently in the new policy-making system?
I'll type these out in the chat box as well for folks.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you need more clarification? If anybody needs more clarification, you need to ask now.
All right.
I will say, Pat, I have a new diagram for you. I put it in the chat. I was listening the whole time, I promise.
So does this mean I go back and change your grade in the other direction?
Look, if you want, I'll take whatever I can get. There's the reason I went into design and not policy.
Well, yeah.
You know,
No,
I'll save it and I'll give it to Pat here in
Excellent.
case. All right,
Excellent.
let's create these groups.
You
We'll
good?
see you ladies on the other side, as they say.
Thank
Okay.
you, Professor.
Thanks, Pat.
Take care, y'all.
Okay, we're good. Have you, oh, is he leaving? He actually left. Did he leave? He did. Okay.
Did we lose everybody?
Well, I was in a group with Michelle and she was coming back in. There she is.
Okay. It's just kind of funny. It's like there's nobody.
You're muted. You're muted.
I didn't realize I had to press a button for myself to turn. I thought I was just like, so I was like, where's everyone at? And I see everybody on the list going, join, join. I'm going, and I see it down the very bottom. It says return to main session. I'm like, come on, I am the main session. Like, what the goodness. Anyway. Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you. Hi, Megan.
Hello.
Very exciting. Hannah, hi. And Adrian, thanks for saving me. Oh, Teresa's on here too. Nice. We got some 05, 06 going on. Very exciting.
I'm
Are
feeling
you
old school
07?
now.
Oh, there was a ton, Adrian, of and we can unmute ourselves. It's really gonna be good. There was a ton of in the very first group, like 89, 90, and 91 folks. I was the most like RSVP'd class. So that's
Nice. That's awesome.
I don't really know what he wants after coming to this, but I'm very interested. Hold on, let me message the group to see if they're coming because they're all like hanging out. It was the other group that I was telling Lauren is like Anne Rucker, who was always like very vocal, Denise, who had commented, oh, they're coming back. There they are. Oh, nice. It was like a powerhouse group. I was very excited to see who, if they had any.
So Michelle, were each of the groups recorded for Pat? Like, how does that work?
I don't think he knows. I don't know.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it works that way or not.
You guys talked
Okay.
about it.
That's why I was like, just email them to him or text.
Okay.
Because what I do is I save the file of the chat and then I give it to him on Monday. So I give him the chat and then I give him the questionnaire results and then the RSVP list on Wednesday morning, just so he can see. And when he said that, I was like, maybe he knows something about Zoom that I don't. He's going to see this recording, right?
Unlikely.
For the YouTube.
So Michelle, should we type up some of the things from our conversation and send it to him?
I think that's what I would do, if you don't mind. it would be helpful. Just send it to him. Take me out. I'm happy to remove myself as the middle woman here. So
Michelle,
do
on all our
we-
emails. Yeah.
Do you need us to RSVP for each one of these sessions? And do you want, no, just the first time? You
Correct.
don't want us to do it. Okay.
yeah, it was just so I could get everybody's email address, and you'll still get
Okay.
the emails every single time. The RSVP is more for his interest. Like, he likes to know who's going to come if you know you're going to come, but it doesn't necessarily mean, you're committed to coming if something, life happens, so if
I
there's
think
any.
he's gonna start calling on people. I've had an eraser or two thrown at me in my time.
Oh,
So
I forgot about that.
Whatever.
I forgot about that. He needs to find a virtual eraser. He did that one time, and it went right past my head to someone else. I was like, "Oh, that did not just happen."
yeah, I jumped out of the way and it hit Carrie Butts.
I think we were in the same class. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Well, Carrie and I went back once or twice and sat in on policy class when we were there for football weekends.
Oh, nice.
God, I love St. Mary's.
That's so great. I love it so much. All right. Does anybody have any
Your Avenue background.
I know.
Very cute.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah, the other day, just Google free Zoom background St. Mary's College. There's that. They have one of the lake, two of the lake, this one, and Lamont Hall. So you can next time pick which one you want.
I love it.
Yeah,
We're all
I
gonna
use
show
Lamont
up.
Hall in my classes all the time. So, or in my work meetings, I'll go ahead and use it. They're like, "What building is that?" Oh, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm
Are
on
you
my.
at the beach, or is that just your background?
So it's actually my local beach. So I live 2 miles away from this beach.
Oh my
and
God,
I got
that's so awesome.
We did that when the beaches were closed because of COVID, because they didn't want anybody partying on the beaches. So I put it onto the background that entire time, so at least I felt like I was there. So
It's beautiful.
Where's that at?
it's Lantana, so it's just south of West Palm Beach, so south of the Winter White House. Because everybody knows where West Palm Beach is now, right? Before no one had any idea, but now very well known.
Very exciting. Does anybody have any last minute thoughts, anything or that you want me to tell Pat? I liked his talking first. I appreciate everybody's response. That was more or less, I will tell you, across the board in the questionnaire was you talk more, we talk less, even though you want us to talk more. But he did a nice job, I think, of kind of.
And I actually really liked the breakout sessions because I like that I got to hear from other people, but still got time to hear from Pat. So that was nice.
Great. I'll make a note there too.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll tell you one more thing and then we'll go. He was like, he's like, everybody, from the questions, from the answers, from everything, he's like, they just want to jump. They just want to go ahead. And he's like, I need to be slow down, ladies. We have to build the foundation of the model, vary his statistic self.
Right, but do you find?
But tell him he can do it in 30 minutes, not 40, because he really could.
Well, I was going to say, now we all have more real life experience, so it makes more sense than it did then when we had 0 point of reference. So yeah, I agree, and those of us have worked somehow associated with government. Sounds like most people in our group have. That can just go. We understand it better.
Mm-hmm. So highlights, be available, or what we could do even is if he could give his spiel. If anybody wasn't quite sure of a concept, when we do the breakout groups, they can actually stay in that main group with him and he can flush it out with them a little bit more. And then I could always throw them, once they get it, into a breakout group of some sort.
That's a good idea.
Cool. All right.
That's a good idea.
Love you, ladies. Great. I love St. Mary's. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
I love the fact that it's remote, right? So being from Florida, and I came from Florida to St. Mary's.
Ooh.
So the ability for me to get plugged back into St. Mary's, this is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for setting it up, Michelle. It really is cool.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Michelle.
doing that.
Yeah, great idea.
Awesome. I hope we do
Also,
more
go
of these too.
Irish. They got to do better this weekend.
Right.
They look like my high school football team last weekend.
Crazy. All right, ladies, have a wonderful week. I will see you next
Bye,
time.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.